So, all right. So that's basically we have Ann Coulter. She posted a bunch of tweets before the flight, then right after the flight, and then the next day. And she still, at this point, has heard nothing from Delta back. So she's still apparently upset about this. Then that afternoon, so the flight was on Saturday, Sunday afternoon. This is what Delta posts 2 tweets to her. Here's the first one. This is from Delta. We're sorry you did not receive the preferred seat you paid for and will refund your $30. Continued. Additionally, your insults about the about our other customers and employees are unacceptable and necessary. So these are the 2 responses. These are the only Twitter responses, all at once. We're sorry you did not receive the preferred seat you paid for and will refund your $30. Additionally, your insults about our other customers and employees are unacceptable and necessary. Now let's take a step back here. Remember, Ann Coulter got on a Delta flight. She had booked a seat in advance. They moved her from her seat. They did not explain to her why. As of this point, before these tweets, they have never offered her any kind of apology or compensation. The first and only communication, and this is public communication that they have to assume other people will see, is 2 tweets to her, both of I feel which could be construed as confrontational and perhaps insulting to her. So look at this first tweet. This first tweet they send out is, we're sorry you did not receive the preferred seat you paid for and will refund your $30. So to me, whether or not it's an intentional, to me this will clearly be read by many people as insulting Ann Coulter. The message here that a lot of people will take out of this is Ann Coulter's making a big deal over $30. Now, personally, I think there's a decent chance they meant to, insult Ann Coulter like that, but maybe they did. Maybe it was an accident. But so one issue here is that their first response to her, someone who clearly had something bad happen to them on their airline, is to send out a tweet. She's a public figure, so this tweet's going to be, now it has 32,000 likes or whatever. But once you put her name on it, people are all going to see this. This is a public response to her. And their first response to her about this incident that happened to her is to post a tweet which seems like, and many people will take, as calling her a cheapskate and somebody who's complaining over $30. That's literally their first response. That's their corporate response, is to post this. And many people did indeed take this as like making fun of Ann Coulter. So that's number 1. Number 2 here is all they offer is $30. So they're not offering compensation. They're saying we'll refund your $30 because you didn't get the $30 extra seat you paid for. So they're in no way offering her extra compensation. If I've done this before, like if I fly and say like the headphones aren't working or the light isn't working above my seat, I will write to them because, first and foremost, because I want them to fix it. So like when I or somebody else flies, this will be fixed. But pretty much always, whatever airline, when I write that, they'll write back and they'll say, here's like a $25 gift certificate for the next flight you can use. They didn't even do that. They literally offered her no compensation, and they just said, here's your refund for the service you weren't given. So that's not compensation. That's just a refund for something you didn't actually get. So they literally have not offered her compensation here at all for what happened to her. Also, all they're apologizing here for is that she did not receive the seat she paid for. In no way do they apologize that she wasn't given an explanation. If you look at her tweets, something Ann Coulter was very upset about, and I can understand this, I think anybody would be upset, was being moved from her pre-booked seat with no explanation. There is no acknowledgement of that or apology for that here. Okay, so this is literally, remember, this is their first corporate response to her. It is made publicly, and it's something which could be easily construed, if not intentional, although it might have been intentional, it easily could be construed and was construed by thousands, probably tens or hundreds of thousands of people, as an insult to Ann Coulter, calling her a cheapskate and an unreasonable complainer. Okay, so that's the first tweet they sent out. Now, the second part of this tweet is, additionally, your insults about our other customers and employees are acceptable and unnecessary. Now, again, Ann Coulter took a Delta flight. She booked a seat in advance. She was moved from that seat. She was not given a reason why. In the first response to her, they have not responded to her at all. This is the initial response to her. What do? They don't just say, we're sorry about this. They say this. They tell her, shame on you for tweeting what you did. They're criticizing her tweets. So their corporate response to her is to post that first part of the tweet, which insults her and calls her a cheapskate and unreasonable. Also, not to apologize for what they did in terms of not explaining why she was taken off the plane, and then have a second half of the tweet in public. So this is not this is not just that they sent this to her in private. This is something that everybody, like hundreds of thousands, millions of people on Twitter will read this about Ann Coulter, read this response to her. They tell her, you shouldn't have tweeted what you did. And they criticize her tweets. This is their public, corporate, initial, and only response to her. This is the only public response on Twitter they've done. There's one other statement they read, and I'll talk about that, but this is the response to her. So I just laid out to you, I think, whatever you think of Ann Coulter's tweets, I think there's certainly a very good case to be made that this is not good customer relations by Delta. I think there's an excellent case to be made. I just laid out the reasons for that. And when I've seen the media coverage of this story in the last couple of days, especially today when they're posting all of these Ann Coulter goes on tirade stories, a lot of the stories, I don't even know if any of the ones I read said anything about Delta's bad customer service. Like, you remember when United, that guy got thrown off United, there were all these stories everywhere about how United has it's a crisis for United and what's their CEO doing, and criticizing the CEO's response to the customer, and all of these endless media stories about how bad their corporate response is and stuff. And yet we here have a corporate response to a customer who clearly was wronged by the airline, and their response is just to send out 2 tweets to this public person that will be read publicly, basically insulting them. Not offering a full apology for what they did, offering no compensation for what they did, and insulting them and also criticizing them. That's their response. And I certainly think there's a great argument to be made, whether or not you agree with it, but there's certainly a good argument to be made, a very good argument to be made, that this is a terrible corporate response. And yet in all this media coverage about this, I've seen nothing about the corporate response. I wonder why. Could it have anything to do with who the person is, that it's Ann Coulter, and